days, we hear a lot about the benefits of going green. Alternative energy will reduce our carbon footprint and help keep the planet cool. Protecting ecosystems and fragile species will maintain biodiversity. And eating organic produce could benefit our health. But one benefit of going green that you don't hear a lot about is the self-awareness and sense of place that comes from really engaging with the natural world. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, today I'm going to tell you about some of my experiences with gardening that I think illustrate some of the benefits of going green. When I was a child, my mother turned our suburban backyard into an oasis. Nestled among the manicured lawns of Bermuda grass and carefully pruned hedges of Richardson, Texas, our yard was a wild jungle of fragrant jasmine, mammoth pecan trees, and sprays of monkey grass. One corner of the backyard was set aside for an oversized compost bin, but the pride of place was a vegetable garden, bursting with tomatoes, peppers, okra, and herbs. Some of my best memories of childhood involve pulling weeds and planting seeds. Many a happy day ended with dirt under my fingernails and a pink sunburn spread across my shoulders. The First Lady, Michelle Obama, planted a vegetable garden in the White House lawn to inspire kids to eat more vegetables, and I think she's really on to something. When I was a child, one of my favorite snacks was a sliced tomato, right off the vine and warm from the sun, and I even looked forward to the furry green spears of okra that have little seeds that burst when you bite them. There's something exciting and inspirational about eating something that you grew yourself. And even as a young child, it wasn't lost on me that turning grass clippings and kitchen scraps into wholesome and delicious produce is magical. Playing a role in that transformation and observing the process up close brings home the fact that we are all supported by a web of living plants and creatures, from tiny earthworms to giant trees. And I think an appreciation of our place in that web is important for a healthy sense of self. When I grew up and moved away to go to college, I stopped thinking about gardening. I lived in more dorm rooms than I can remember and moved twice a year for the better part of a decade. During most of that time, it didn't even occur to me to miss plants. Towards the end of my graduate education, I was pretty stressed. I was worried about finishing my dissertation, finding a job, what to do with my life. At that time, I was living in a sterile high-rise apartment in a sea of concrete, tile floors and cinder block walls, and it turns out that environment was contributing to my stress. I was experiencing a deficit of vitamin green. Around that time, I discovered container gardening. I planted basil seeds in an oversized kitchen bowl, watered them every day, and within a few weeks, I was the proud parent of 12 tiny basil seedlings. I was so enamored with these little plants. I examined my charges every morning to see how they were doing. When they started getting tall, I pinched off the top couple of leaves so they would grow bushier. Crushing the tiny leaves released their spicy, intoxicating aroma. On days that I didn't have class, I studied in my room and I scooted the bowl across the floor to track the rectangle of sunlight. Those basil plants were really beautiful. Their vibrant green, glossy leaves caught the morning sunlight and appeared to glow. My container garden changed the mood of my apartment, and it had a calming, centering effect on my whole outlook on life. Since that experience, I have tried to mark every spring by planting something and setting aside time every day to notice its growth. When I moved to Carbo after graduation, I lived in a condominium. There were a couple of feet of lawn out front, which I made full use of by planting morning glories and herbs. After a few years, I saved up enough money to buy a house with a nice big yard. People buy houses for all sorts of reasons, as an investment, to get more privacy or space, but I must admit that a big incentive for me to buy a house was the opportunity to have a compost bin and a big garden. One of the first things I did after moving in, before painting the walls, replacing the broken stove, was to rent a tiller, dig up half the front yard, mixing in liberal amounts of chicken manure from a local farm. It wasn't until the first spring, when everything started growing, that my house really felt like a home. When the wild birds showed up in the spring, I knew I had succeeded in creating my own little oasis. My garden is not just for the inhabitants of the neighborhood who are human. It is also family to nesting bluebirds, a pair of raucous woodpeckers, and scads of baby rabbits and deer. I don't have a lot of time to garden these days, but I really love spending time puttering around in the garden, pulling weeds, and planning my next project. If I have a stressful day at work, thinking about things that are unproductive, nothing gets me out of my rut faster than putting on a pair of old jeans and going out to trim the vines around the bird bath or turn the compost. Before long, I notice my breathing is deeper, and I'm thinking more about the calming effects of rosemary than about politics at work. Gardening reminds me that the world is an amazing and beautiful place like no other activity can. I really love that Kay made the comfort zone green because for me, my comfort zone is my green garden. And fostering it and making it grow makes my comfort zone grow, giving me a little more energy to step outside and do something a little scary like a talk. In a little under 2 weeks, we will be celebrating the 40th anniversary of Earth Day. If you haven't yet discovered the restorative powers of gardening, I encourage you to take the plunge and try your hand at growing something. Most seeds cost less than $2 a packet, which is a tiny investment for reconnecting with the web of life. To quote Mahatma Gandhi, to forget how to dig the earth and to tend the soil is to forget ourselves.